When the DJI Pocket 3 was announced, I heard a whimper in the night and I realized it was a Sony executive seeing his ZV1 line drop to the bottom of an ocean. But he could revive the thing if he made a couple tiny tweaks, which we will discuss today.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
Before we start this bullshit video, a little side rant on why we're filming on the ZFC Nikon with the Sirui 33mm 21.2. Why am I filming on it, you ask? Because I didn't sell it last night, did I? That was close. Was I? Why didn't he buy it, you ask? He was in my apartment complex with money. He gave me the money. I gave him the lenses. But he said, can't wait to use this on my Sony FX30. I wanted to punch him in the sack. But I said, you know these are for Nikon, right? It was in the ad. Clearly Nikon Z mount APS-C. He's like, what? Really? I thought these were for Sony. It's like, yeah, they come in multiple mounts. Look for one with Sony in the title next time, you piece of shit. I had it. I was like, so you don't want them? You could just sell them for more money. He's like, no, I can't hustle, bro. So here we are, using it. I hate life. We'll see if I'm in focus at all in this video because Nikon hates me. I changed some settings to slower but more responsive. God help us. So let's face it, Sony a7S III in a tiny bitch of a stick, and it flips on and it's stable as hell. You got 4K 120p 10-bit, HD 240, it flipped around to see me. You can be Jay Swizzle if you want. How do you beat this thing? Mic jack right in there. USB-C, unfortunately, you piece of shit. By the way, there will be a link down below for the Ulanzi filters, which close in the gimbal. It's on there. Even though Freewell warned against having a filter that thin, I don't know, I made a video the other day. It does flare a bit, but it's like cinematic flares. So it kind of looks nice. And the filters close with the gimbal on. Cool. So here's the deal. Sony ZV1 comes out many years ago, and it was a joke to me because of how much there was a crop and like bullshit stabe. And if you're making a vlogging camera, it should be really stable, in focus, and have some fun slow motion, of course. And Sony gave us almost none of those things. It was super shaky, somewhat stable enough if you were careful, but jerky, not great. 960 frames per second slow-mo, like they had a lot of fun things in there. It was just, the lens was so tight. I was like, how do you figure that's designed for vlogging? You're a joke. And then they come out with the ZV1F, which is super fail version of that. They remove the good autofocus, like it was a baby's camera made for dumber babies than should be allowed on our earth. Then when the ZV1 Mark II came out, which removed the 960 frames per second, you're all the way down to 120. I was like, you have a new lens, but it's still really not wide enough. You removed stabilization in the lens, and now it's only digital. And it's like, okay, this line is heading down off a cliff. It's getting worse and worse. Sony could revive it because now there's competition. I guess they were in a league of their own where they didn't have to try, because the only thing was a Canon G7X. The thing's still using contrast detect autofocus, like it's abysmal. So they had no competition, they're not even trying, and then all of a sudden, DJI Pocket 3 comes into our lives, and it's like, hey, we're better than you now. What are you gonna do, Son? So Sony's like, shit, alright, we gotta go to work. They were in their pajamas all day long, every day, and now they have to go to work. Are they gonna do it? Sony's the best. You know they are, they have the best specs. If they wanna actually make a nice camera, they do it. But the ZV1 line, it's like, oh, their budget thing, they kind of forgot, but now they realize the storm that is upon them with the DJI Pocket 3. So if they want to beat it, they only have to do one thing. They have to care. They have to try. Because they have the potential. We're all good enough. We have the potential. I used to see it on my report cards. Has great potential. Not using it. Not using it at all. If we just try, don't be afraid to fail. Just go for it. Reach the gold. So that's the first thing Sony needs to do. They actually have to put an effort forward and try to create something that's enjoyable to use and could beat the DJI Pocket 3. They have to want to do this, because right now they're just kind of recycling old material. They're not really innovating anything. Here's what they need to do, physically and spiritually. You need a new sensor. You're known. The ZV1 had a stacked sensor, which allowed for super fast frame rates, but you had 24 megapixels for some stupid reason. You have to go the A7S III line route, where you're doing low megapixel, super high specs. You know what it should be? Full frame ZV1, doing 4K 120p HD 240. FX30 should have also been low megapixel, video centric, but higher specs, because it's less data. You have an APS-C sensor, you're not having to do full frame, so it's easier to have even more. You should be doing 4K 240, HD 480. In your 1-inch sensor, you're also doing stacked 12 megapixel, but you're now doing 4K 480 frames per second in a burst, at least. Give me 4 seconds on that burst. Just 4. Come on. It would be the perfect strategy. I don't know why Sony isn't even... They better be doing this. Because ZV1 versus ZV1 Mark III. Okay, some people are going to prefer the full frame look and the dynamic range and everything that comes with full frame magic. But when it's 1 inch, you get more specs. So it actually destroys the ZV1 in frame rates, but at a cost of less dynamic range, worse image quality. You get no Tonys back there. Come on now. You think you're getting Tonys on the 1 inch. We're getting a nice Zeiss lens on there. It makes sense, does it not? Maybe you're not even doing 10-bit in that. Do I care? Just improve the color science of a standard profile. I switched the lens out for the 56mm and I put a light over on this side to give me a warm glowy hue. So Sony, you could make things so simple if you really tried to make the ultimate vlogging cam. We know it should be the Sony X4000, but you're not continuing that line because you're afraid to fight GoPro and DJI in a boxing match because you know they'd punch you in the nutsack. So like if you go ZV1, okay, this is our vlogging thing, boom. It's our cheap end, but it has the best specs because of how tiny the sensor is. Just a new Zeiss lens, either a wide prime or a little zoom, but it has to have optical stabe in it, and a good version of optical stabe. I said that right. It has to look nice, and then your digital stabe is just a complement to that. A little 10% crop that works in all modes, by the way. 4K 480 frame digital stabe crop. It better be in there. And once you have the framework built, low megapixel stacked sensor with a nice optical stabe Zeiss 3D popping lens, then you build around that with your NDs that you're making darker. Sony ZV1 had the internal NDs, but not very dark. You couldn't actually get a nice shutter speed. Did no one calculate that? Did you not realize, okay, we're out in the sun. Oh, it's still 1/500th at the max. Don't make it darker. Who cares? It's in there. NDs. Make it darker so that actually works. It's just, will they do this? Do they care enough? Are there enough people to even buy the damn thing? Would I even buy it? I'm literally making this camera right now. Would I even care? I would. I totally would. Maybe. I'd buy one on the used market. For sure. Come on. I actually just saw a deal for the Nikon Z6 Mark II for 800 Canadian dollars. I was like, holy shit, that is low. I told my friend about it because maybe he said he was interested. I don't know that he's scavenging enough money from mowing lawns, but maybe he'll get it. if it had a flippy screen, I would totally get that thing. But I have no full frame lenses now. I returned the 40mm Tony 2 because I figure I could buy it again if something good comes, but nothing's coming yet, so we wait. So hopefully Sony does something like this, actually put some effort in, because Canon, like, what are they doing? They're not going to do it. The V10 was their answer to the Pocket 3, even though it wasn't out yet. It was like the most embarrassing thing we've ever seen. It's like nobody's using that. It looks so bad, and it's still contrast detect, and it's like, what is that? What did you even, why? So Canon's not going to do it. They don't put tech in lower end stuff. They want your cinema cam. Oh, our C500 has the stuff you want. It doesn't even have the stuff I want. There's no slow-mo in the damn thing. Canon has the worst slow-mo in the business, from what we know. So give it a shot, Sony. Try to win someone over for once, instead of doing the least amount of effort possible just to avoid prison. That's what they do. The ZV1 II was an absolute insult, not an upgrade. You removed all the things I loved and improved almost nothing and charged more money for it somehow. That's prison talk. You should be thrown in jail, but you just did enough. There was enough in there that the authorities were like, okay, we'll let them slide this time, but you definitely got a criminal record for it. Just because you're not in prison doesn't mean you didn't do wrong by us. So I'll leave. Nikon. Why am I even trying to sell this? It looks better than anything I have. Wow. It is available in Canada if you're there. You should be. It's cold here. We live longer. We're preserved like a freezer. Subscribe for more videos, Alex.